Hello friends, we are back in the Old English period. We have just seen, in the last class we saw the Old English literature and the pagan stream of Old English. The most important thing is that the important work we have seen is Beowulf. And we saw shorter pieces about the seafaring, about the minstrel life and battles and so on. Now today we see again, and probably this is the last lecture in Old English period other than influences. We have 4 influences are waiting for us, that is Celtic, Scandinavian, French and for the Latin, and otherwise this will be the end of Old English period. I mean, we have got 4 more topics, 4 main topics now. That's about influences, loan words in English that we know. So this is Old English literature, the Christian stream. Christian stream, what we find is that the paraphrases and translations of Old Testament, New Testament and saints of life. That is paraphrases, translations of Old Testament OT, New Testament NT, and also lives of saints. This is what attracts you as far as the Christian stream is concerned. Then you know the story of Catman, isn't it? Catman was a lay brother in the monastery Whitby, and what happened is that Bede tells us the story. Venerable Bede, he tells us the story of Catman. Catman was sleeping. Then at night, while sleeping in a dream, he received the gift of song, and then he started writing poems and hymns about subjects dealing with the Bible scriptures. So he wrote many beautiful lines describing different parts of the scriptures, so that he received a gift. Sometimes every one of us feel like that. Suppose we also receive a gift, we will do something like that. It's very easy. You should lead a prayerful life, then you will get it. Understand that? Then there was an Anglian poet, Cynewulf. You have heard of this name? Cynewulf. What he did was again same thing, that is about biblical stories. And biblical stories or related stories. He wrote Juliana and Ellen, a piece Juliana and Ellen. And again you have got pieces like about Christ, his advent, his ascension, and also you find the last judgment. Ascension to heaven and the last description of the last judgment. And you have got the fates of apostles, another one, fates of apostles. That means what happened to each one of those apostles. You know, there are 12 of them. They went to different parts of the world. It is believed that St. Thomas came here and preached the word of God here, isn't it? And so about that. And what happened to St. Thomas, we know. He was martyred, so you can see. He became a martyr. See, somebody killed him while he was praying at this hills of Malayatu. I don't know whether you know it or not. So that is about fates of apostles. What happened to them? Where were the places they went preaching the word of God and so on. And then there was another one, Andreas and Gudlak. Andreas and Gudlak. That is about the story of Judith. See, tales of Judith, tales from Judith, part of the tales of Judith. So it's all Christian themes, you know, Christ and so on. Then we have got Phoenix. The Phoenix, that was another point. The Phoenix. Phoenix is the symbol of the Christian soul. Christian soul means Christians believe now that after death there will be resurrection. Phoenix, the pagan myth Phoenix also tells the same thing. the phoenix bird rises from its ashes. So also the Christians believe that one day you will all come back to life with your body exactly as you are now. So you should be very careful, careful and looking after your body. Understand that? Yes. So from this, what you understand is another thing is these themes you will find not only dealt with not only by the Teutons and the Anglo-Saxons, but you would find that in that world of, say, that is some Middle Ages, 16, 14 to 13, 14, 12 to 11 to 13, 14 centuries, we can see. Everywhere you will find these things people are writing about. Translated the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, Christ, advent of Christ, ascension of Christ, last judgment, such things. These themes were so prevalent in almost every country. So from this you can understand every literature also, literature of that period. So from this you can understand that the cosmopolitan nature of the Teutonic people. So it's not only that it was dealt with by these people, but everything. Understand? Another very important, most probably the most important, we can say, of the development in Old English literature was, that is, prose, writings in prose, and the founder of modern prose. If a question is asked in the UGC and so on, you will get, who is the founder of modern prose? The founder of modern prose is King Alfred. King Alfred himself. So King Alfred the Great, this King Alfred the Great, not a small person, but a great. King Alfred the Great. He himself learned Latin. He knew you had to master classical language and you should translate classical texts of classical language from, that is Latin and Greek, from classical languages to vernacular. Understand? So by the way, I would like to, the other day I forgot to tell you that Beowulf was the first European vernacular epic. European vernacular epic, not a classical epic. Somebody asked that question, the first European vernacular epic, then the answer is Beowulf. Understand? Yeah, so that is it. So prose, founder of modern prose, is King Alfred. So he knew, he was very conscious about this, that you, unless and until you translate great works from classical languages, our language, that is King Alfred's language. Old English is known by his name, King Alfred's language. Middle English is by Chaucer's language. Modern English is by Shakespeare's language. Already we have seen the periods of history when we are dealing with that. You remember when I told you these things. Yes. So he said King Alfred himself. So when he was old, at his old age, he himself learned Latin. See that? And then he translated the pastoral care given by Pope Gregory. That's the translation by King Alfred himself. Pastoral care. That is the title. It was written in Latin issued in Latin by Pope Gregory. So that he himself translated. He translated by himself. That's the thing. That's what it is. Since he showed, he was convinced and he showed, it was his example. Then what happens is you find the bead. Yes, beads, you remember. Translation, bead. What is the title, Latin title? Historia Ecclesiastica Gendis Anglorum. Historia Ecclesiastica Gendis Anglorum. So that is the book. That means history, ecclesiastical history of the people of England. Anglorum, of the people of England. Gendis means people. Anglorum of Angles or England. Ecclesiastical. So that is the history, the ecclesiastical history of the English people. The ecclesiastical history of the English people. That is the, so translated from Latin. Translated from that. Another was Boethius. You remember Boethius? De consolatione de philosophiae. That is. De consolatione philosophiae by Boethius. That is about the consolations of philosophy. Translation. This is Latin. About the consolations of philosophy. Philosophy will give you many consolations now. You remember the last class I told you the philosophy of Beowulf. He said no, when you were just before taking the risk, he said, what is there after all? Everybody should die. Those who are mighty enough, those who are courageous enough should take to adventures. And when the hero's body lie lifeless, people will get inspiration from that. That is philosophy, great philosophy, isn't it? Yes. So then there was another, a Spanish priest, Osiris. This is the name of a Spanish priest. He defended the faith, Christian faith. A lot of people are attacking Christian faith, so he defended it. That's also in prose. These are all prose works. So we understand the development of prose at that time. Then you got Wulfstan, sermon to the English. Wulfstan, another person. Wulfstan, sermon to the English people. That is about political and religious reform. Moral and political. Precepts of moral and political. So thus we have got a very rich legacy of prose literature during the Old English period. Usually you have to thank King Alfred for this, for prose. Usually what happens is, in all countries where literature people start writing, they start writing in verse, poetry. That is the first thing, poetry, because it's easy to remember, easy to recite, easy to read, there's some more beautiful than prose. But here what happens is, poetry also simultaneously prose developed. The other is poetry first, or verse, versing first, then prose later. But it is not the case in England. In the Teutonic literature, there is Old English literature. This is one of the characteristics, so you can point out this as one of the characteristics of Old English literature, that not only poetry, but also prose side by side. Or simultaneously you can say. Understand that? And then there is what you call, says, so large and varied a body of literature in verse and in prose. So Old English had so large and varied literature, both in prose and verse, that it is a testimony, it is a proof to the universal competence of English. Universal competence of English and its power and beauty. The literature of Old English, both in prose and poetry, in verse, both in verse and prose, proclaims the universal power, you can say, the universal competence of power and beauty of Old English literature. The power and beauty of Old English literature, where will you find? In the verses, and also in the poems, and also in the prose works of those periods. Christians, pagan was, of course, as you can see, nothing to do with Christian life, but Christians, lots of things about Testament, Old Testament, New Testament, saints, fates of apostles, and things. So what happens is that you have got, and plus you have got the wonderful works of King Alfred, mainly of translation. But he was the pioneering, he was the pioneer, so to say, you can say. His was the pioneering efforts towards development of a beautiful prose literature during the Old English period. So with this, we come to one part of Old English period, that is about Old English itself. the founders of Old English, the founding of English language, founders of English language, then the language and at its early days, the characteristics of Old English, that is, the vocabulary, pronunciation, spelling, and then we have got the grammar. The most significant factor or the distinguishing factor of Old English, we can say, is inflections. Words were inflected, nouns were inflected, two declensions of noun, two groups. Verbs were inflected. Inflection of a verb is called conjugation. So there were two conjugations of verbs, strong and weak. Then we saw noun we saw stance, and so on. Then adjective was inflected for masculine, feminine, neuter, singular, plural. And the personal pronouns were inflected. Three numbers were there, that is singular, dual and plural. Also we saw the definite article was inflected, but now you don't have any of these things, and therefore you can see, look back with great credit and look back with great enthusiasm and a sense of winning, you can say, that we have covered all these things in great detail. Then we saw the vocabulary, the resourcefulness of Old English, how different ideas were expressed with the existing or whatever word stock they had, such as prefixing and suffixing, using of kennings. Then they also saw that compounds, self-explaining compounds, and taking a root and then adding endings and then making new words like a mod, a single root mod that gives how many words, how many meanings it has, hearty, bold, pride. So from there you have got the derivative meanings and so on we found. And then also we saw the Old English literature. In Old English literature we have got two streams. Most important thing is that the pagan and in the pagan stream you have got Beowulf and the songs of the minstrels, and then we have got the Christian, mainly about the scriptures. We have three great people to remember: Catman, who received a gift, Cynewulf, and then King Alfred for prose literature. I think that with this we can come to the end of this particular part of Old English. Now tomorrow or in the next class we will start with influences on Old English, and these influences are borrowings, loanwords. That's what made the language so rich. So enrichment of the language is the next item that we have to see. So till we see that enrichment of English language by borrowings, by freely borrowing, so we will say, in fact, English, Old English is like Ben Jonson. It was said about Ben Jonson that he was a borrower. He was clothed in the colors of the Romans, it is said, classical word. Because he borrowed freely from Horace, Juvenal, and other great writers, Aristophanes, and so on. So exactly like that, you can say English grew to the Middle Ages. Up to before it reaches Middle Ages, it has put on a lot of colors, a lot of clothes of other languages such as Celtic, Latin, Scandinavian, and the French. Okay, so let's wait anxiously to see how the English developed and became a very rich language. Today the medium probably of the most important, we can say, or the only important, I cannot say. In fact, we are the most important language of this shrinking world, what we call the global village. So let's wait for that anxiously. The story of the development of the English language is really a very rewarding. It's a rewarding subject to study, and it's also a challenging subject to study. Therefore, I wholeheartedly invite you and wish that all of you participate in this. And for that purpose, you should all subscribe to my channel. This is only, you have just started only 1/3 of the story, not even 1/3, 1/4 or 1/5 of the story of the development of the English language. Now you are 4/5 still remaining. Therefore, it's high time that you subscribe so that whenever I upload a video, you get a ring. Understand that? Hope that you find everything well, and you enjoy my classes. So till we meet again, bye. Have a nice time. Take it easy.